changed over that time?
It's gone through stages as the clubs go through evolution stages as well, and it's what you do know. It's been good for AFL football in this city, and to be able to have another team here for a number of reasons, and it's been both teams have had their goes at different times over that journey, and I think that's been a really good thing for AFL football. And you probably don't realise it until you live in the city. How competitive it is with other sports, and to be able to have two competitive teams. At different times we've been top four, and to have that in this city, I think's a great thing. And no matter what happens, it generates a lot of talk for AFL footy in this town. I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, look, I think John's right. I mean, I think it's the 20th derby on the weekend, and it'd be great. I mean, last year we had the derby in Perth, which is a strange year, as we know. But this weekend, I mean, clearly the Swans are playing some great footy, and we've sort of got our season rolling a little bit from the weekend's performance, and it'd be just awesome if the crowds come along, and I think Sydney had about 30,000 here last week in the game against Essendon, and we'd encourage all our supporters from the West to come to the SCG on Saturday, because it's two young teams, playing a brand of footy that people want to see. So it'd be great to see 40,000 people there on Saturday at the SCG, and I encourage all Giants supporters, and no doubt the Swannies will come. It's our home game, and I think it's fantastic for the city and it's fantastic for New South Wales.
John, you just spoke about both teams sort of having their turn and perhaps not always crossing over when you're pushing for top four. Where do you see the comparative sides at now?
I'd probably a bit similar, but as Leon mentioned, both younger teams that are coming through now that have still got their experienced players to be able to help that next evolution, that next push by both respective playing groups. So very similar in a lot of ways. That a lot of youth coming through, still a really good blend though of youth and experience that we know is really important. And I think that's the interesting part of this whole journey over that period of time that Leon and I have been involved in, has been that you go through different stages, and at the moment it probably feels a very similar stage, both younger teams coming through and that really good sprinkling of still those experienced boys that can, with the hard heads that understand what playing in big games is like, and to be able to play in front of what we hope is a big crowd here on the weekends is a terrific thrill for all the players.
One for Jacob and Luke. We've heard John and Leon touch on the fact it's really important for New South Wales football to have a competitive balance there, both up and about. But we want to hear about the rivalry. What's it like from a player's perspective? Is there spite there? What's it like on the field? I was talking to Josh Kelly yesterday, and he talked about a lot of physicality in these matches. What about from your two perspective?
I think from our perspective, we've come up against a really good side for a number of years now, and I think we've played against each other in 2 finals. So we've been up the top and playing in big games against each other, and I think the boys play each other a lot in the reserves, a lot in pre-season, so you know each other quite well. You probably see each other down the street a fair bit, and that's where probably the fun and enjoyment of that rivalry is grown, and there's always that physicality comes with probably knowing people a bit more personally. And it's all we know they're a really competitive group. They've got some real hard nuts in there, and they never back down from a challenge, and we expect that this weekend. So it's always good fun to be part of those games.
Yeah, I'd second that. I think it's always kind of big games. It's got that feel to it. It's got that energy and excitement. Obviously, Sydney, it's making that push, and AFL's getting bigger and bigger. And I'd agree there is that familiarity as well, because we do know each other pretty well now and know kind of what each team likes to do. But there's definitely that little bit extra, which is always fun, and that's why you play footy, for that bit of extra competitive spirit, and it always seems to kind of be there in these bigger games. And I think both sides love it and rise to the challenge.
Maybe one for the coaches. We'll start with you, Leon. You both got similar issues in terms of your defence this week, in terms of personnel. Obviously, John, no Rampy on the weekend, and Leon, Phil is the guy who usually goes to Buddy in these games, and he's had a decent record from memory. What's plans around the big man there with Phil not in the team?
Yeah, look, they've had some great battles over the last 7 or 8 years. But, Sam Taylor's in really good form at fullback. We've sort of been playing him more closer to home, and Lockie Keefe as well. So those two, you would think, would have Buddy for periods of the game. We'd like to think that we've got a flexible defence now that, can play on all types. Sometimes you can go into games with just a hard matchup, maybe one out of your back 6 or 7. On the weekend we probably had a lot of players playing a lot of different players, and it's probably going to be no different with the amount of rotations that happen. But you probably think that Taylor and Keefe are going to obviously man up Buddy if he's deep, but it's not just him we've got to worry about. I mean, they're kicking a lot of goals, they're scoring well, they're moving the ball well, and it doesn't matter whether those players are deep or not. We've got to make sure our defence up the ground is in pretty good shape.
And John, Dane Rampy, he played a lot last year with a broken hand, and then has been playing for a couple of weeks with a broken finger. Does he even bother telling the medical staff when he's injured anymore?
Yeah, not good for his piano playing career. He's just had a bad trot, and he's been able to play with it, as we saw last year, for a number of weeks. And he played the Richmond game. He played last Thursday, and it became apparent that it wasn't going to get better, and it needed to have an operation. So he's at that point where he's hard. He's generally tough, and he plays that way. He gets through, just gets on with the job. It's just been bad luck for him the last couple of times, and to see him again today, I mean, it was in his other hand, and so he's had the operation. Hopefully he starts to get right now, but he's been stiff. He's been really stiff. So unfortunately, we won't have him this week. But I think there's just happening across the competition, certainly with the Giants across the competition at the moment. There's just a few injuries. That's what happens when the season gets into the flow. You've got to be able to. That's part of the challenge of getting through a season. It is a marathon, and you have to make sure you've got your squad to be able to get you through that. And so that happens with every team. It's just the challenges you're faced with on a week-to-week basis. It's just how it happens. It's happened to Dane and Isaac have had the bad run probably the last 12 months.
And James Rowbottom a chance to return this week?
Yeah, we expect him to be able to complete training tomorrow. So hopefully he gets through that pretty well. He was able to train well yesterday, so that's a good sign.
Just off your perspective on Dane there and that ability to push through, stupid pain. Like, I know players play through a lot of injuries and not what it is, but for Dane to do something like that, I mean, he's a bit of a different cat as it is. Is that just part of his makeup? And he'll just do what it takes sometimes to get on the field, even if it's putting up with something that other humans can't.
Yeah, he is. He's a competitive beast, and look, he hates missing football. I don't think he's missed too much since he started here in, when was it, 2012 or 2013. Look, he's hardly missed a beat, and unfortunately, it'll put him out for a couple of weeks. But to see him, what he pushes through, and to continue to perform, I think he just looks at himself as, once he crosses that white line, he's not holding back, and I think it's a great thing for our young guys to see how the ability that he's able to play at under those conditions, and continue to put his hand up week after week. With those injuries, but look, unfortunately, he'll get himself right. We've got, as Horst said, it's a squad mentality, and we've got a lot of other boys who will be putting up their hand this week in Malikan and Brand, and they've been playing some really good footy in the reserves.
Just one for the coaches. Blake talked a bit more about how well these teams know each other. What sort of unique challenges does that bring? You've obviously played each other so much, particularly with COVID and reserves clashes all the time and whatnot. How, do you feel like this opposition better than any other? And what sort of challenges does that bring?
Look, it's fine knowing each other, but then you've still got to be able to stop it on game day. I think the good thing about it is this weekend is it's really young teams. It's different from 2 years ago. There's probably, I can only speak on behalf of the Giants, there's probably 7 or 8 different players from the last derby that was in Sydney. And it's probably the same with John. And there's young kids that have come through that from both sides that have never played in the derby. And it's just going to be phenomenal. That's why I said, it'd be great for a huge crowd at the SCG. And clearly we play a lot of each other in the lower level. We did last year, and we've continued to do that up until the VFL kicks off this weekend. It's you still got to be able to stop Sydney's strengths, or vice versa. So it doesn't make it any easier just because we might know each other or we play each other a bit more than the norm. But and on game day, when pressure's right on and stakes are high, it's going to be a really good battle.
Leon, I think Matthew Lloyd said last night Toby Green was obviously brilliant on the weekend, and Matthew Lloyd said he should be the full-time captain. Do you have a response to that, and what's he been like? Maybe one for Jacob as well. What's he been like around the group being in charge now?
Yeah, look, no doubt he's a really good player. He's a bloody good player, and but Cogs is our captain and Toby's our vice captain. I think it's a wonderful trait to have. The more leaders you got, the better off. And you'd hate to think that one day you're putting your hand up saying you've got too many leaders, because you can never have enough. And if this is developing Toby in a really good manner, fantastic. But Cogs is our captain and Toby's our vice captain.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And, we all fully support Cogs, but Toby's been able to step up. Obviously, Cogs going down, not ideal, but it is what it is, and that's footy. And Toby's been able to step up and to play the way he is. We kind of expect that from Toby now, but, he's got this added element now to his game where he's this real leader and everyone looks to him and, expects a high level of play, but also that just engagement from him on game day and through the week. And, he's just growing and getting better and better, which is, great for everyone to see, great for guys like me to see, younger guys see coming through, and, it's something you can really get in behind and support and really get a lot of energy from.
Leon, you shook the team up a bit for the match against Collingwood. Nick Haynes played on the wing. Josh Kelly across half forward a bit more. Can you talk us through a bit behind that, and I guess whether you might have some surprises for a team that is familiar with you generally?
Yeah, we clearly had to make a few changes because on the back of a few injuries, and just to probably try a few things. We'd lost our first 3. So we tried a few things, and Hainesy played wing and back, and we actually liked what we seen there for a bit. And he'll do it again this weekend. He'll be down back, but also he'll play up on the wing. And Josh is probably, it's not unfamiliar for him to be a high half forward, but also on ball, and he was doing that throughout the game. He's been doing that for a few weeks. We like his running power, we like his ball use. So, with a few guys that are out of the team, you look for different ways to probably bring players into the game in different positions, and we'll probably head down that path again this week.
And the other big change was Shane Mumford coming in,
doing
really well against Brody Grundy. Is there a temptation to keep him in the side rather than bringing Matty Flynn back after being rested last week?
It'll be a really good discussion tomorrow. Look, I sort of said this after the game. I think, Mummy's our ruck coach player. He's not the player that he was a few years ago, and we can't expect him to be playing 20 games. If everything worked to plan, which it never does, he should probably only play 6 or 7 games, because we really want to develop Flynn and Briggs, and clearly Bruce, who's injured, will come back in the second half of the year. So, but we're wrapped with his performance. We'll see how he pulls up, but he can't go back to back to back. We've got a 7-day break, but Flinny's had a rest, so we'll make that call probably end of the day tomorrow.
So how much does that decision come down to the choice between developing someone like Matty Flynn or playing Mumford, who just had a great game, and sort of focusing more on getting the win over Sydney?
I think every game you go into, you want to win. It's a huge game for us, where we're coming from. But equally, you're trying to pick the best team every week. And Flinny was really good round 1. He probably tired a bit in round 2 and round 3. I mean, his debut was fantastic. We were to wrap with. So it's not as if we're just giving young Matty Flynn a game. He will deserve to play this weekend if he gets picked, and so will Shane. But Shane just can't go back to back 3 or 4 weeks in a row.
John, to make us all feel old, but you coached Mummy in a premiership about a decade ago, which is crazy. How does it feel from the opposition to just, he's still going? Obviously, he's not playing too much this year. We had a really good game on the weekend. And ancillary to that, obviously, your ruckman, Tom Hickey's come in and had a really big impact in the first 4 weeks. How happy are you with him?
On the first point, Mummy, you was brilliant on the weekend. I mean, Brady Grundy's obviously one of the premier ruckmen in the competition. So, I don't think anyone was surprised though when Mummy's able to deliver in a competitive sense. He can certainly work himself to that point where he just goes out and gets a job done. Has always been like that. Massive competitor, very good with his ruck craft too. Able to manoeuvre and shift people out of the way really well. He's very good at his craft, and that's some of the it's one thing we've been really happy with Tom Hickey is his knowledge of the ruck craft is at a really high level. So those blokes are able to understand what their strengths and weaknesses are, what they physically can and can't do, and then work within those limitations is a real skill, and those guys are able to do that. Whether you're at Mummy, it's obviously, as Leon explained, he's only going to play a limited amount of footy this year, but his ability to be able to still get the most out of himself, and we've been so pleased with what Tom Hickey's been able to do in being able to work through his craft. So, it's an important battle. It's always an important battle here at the SCG. The midfield battle is important in any game, but the SCG is very important, particularly when you've got a highly talented midfield with GWS. It's whether Mummy plays or not, it's going to be an interesting part of the ground to see who gets on top.
This probably takes you back to what you were talking about right at the start of the press of it. Just this game itself, is this outside of finals? Is this the biggest match on each club's calendar? Is this the one that you want to win more than any others? Do you treat it like just another game? Where does it sit?
Oh, I think I'd be lying to say you don't want bragging rights. I mean, we play each other twice in the real season. We have the warm-ups in the start of the year. But, that's what a rivalry's got to be like. I mean, we're only 10 years and Sydney have been here for a lot longer than what we have. But, and no doubt they would have built some rivalries, with the Collingwoods and Hawthorns over the years in grand finals. And so the clubs have been around for a long time, probably have 3 or 4 rivalries. We've built one with the Swans. Took a little while because it took us a while to come up to that part of it. It's absolutely you want to win. It's huge, and so a great opportunity for, I said, probably about 7 or 8 of our guys to play in a derby for the first time in front of hopefully a sellout crowd, and you just can't buy it. Can't buy that experience.
Jacob, I think you've got the Bulldogs next week, right? So you've got the Swans first. That's probably your 2 biggest rivals in the AFL. Why are these games different from each other? Like, it seems like this one is very much built on respect between the 2 clubs. Bulldogs one, we'll deal with that a little bit more next week, but you guys hate each other by the looks of it. Would you like there to be a bit more animosity in this one, or do you think that'll develop, or are you happy with this one the way it is?
Yeah, don't really know how to answer the question, but it's I don't know. I think there's always respect for every opposition you play against, but yeah, you're right. There, for whatever reason, seems to be more emotion, more feeling, and I think whilst we do have that kind of friendly nature with a few of the boys, across the road, it's kind of, as soon as you cross that white line, there's still a game of footy to be won, and it's on no matter what. And there always has been that ever since I've come to the club, and I've really enjoyed lining up against the Swans and playing against, their midfield and their team. And then I feel like with the Dogs, it's of a similar vein, but again, there is that as soon as you step over, we obviously don't know them because we don't live near the Bulldogs geographically. But there is, no matter what, you step over that white line, it's on, and we've had some really big games. I think obviously big games help to those rivalries, and we've had some really big, close, hard-fought games, and I know that they're 2 teams, when I see them in the schedule, it's like, yeah, beauty, good games here, big games, which is, great to have, and it doesn't mean it's any more or any less than any other opposition, but there is that bit of extra feeling because you have that history of big games.
Luke, there's a lot of talk about the Swans kids and the young guys. You're not that old yourself, but you look around, you're almost an elder statesman of the group. How exciting is that for you, watching all these kids come through and getting to lead such a young group? And maybe do you see a bit of yourself in them? When you came in, you were in a side that was winning a lot of games as a young kid.
Yeah, I actually had a haircut and shave for my face last week to try and keep the youth in myself. But look, we've been really excited with the kids coming through. I think, especially the three that have been playing a lot in Errol and Braden and Logan. This year that they've been around the club for a while, and to see them be able to train with a little bit from probably about 17 or 16, 17, they've just got really mature heads on them and know their football and love their football. And I probably was in a similar spot to them when I came into a side and was quite successful. And look, at the moment it's only been 1 month of winning. It's a long season, but look, what they've been able to inject into this group is excitement, as well as their talent. But look, they're playing some pretty free-flowing football and enjoying each challenge as it comes. I think we really set ourselves for round 1 against Brisbane to go up there and win, and to be a part of those big wins against sides that are right up there challenging for premierships is great experience for those boys early on in their careers, and the confidence that they've been able to take from playing them, Adelaide, Richmond, and Essendon on the weekend when it's a tight one, to be in that scenario early on in their career and come out on top is really valuable for their experience. So, look, we really value the depth that we've got in those young boys. But as I said, it's been 1 month, and a season's a long time. So the main thing for us is to make sure they just keep going week in, week out with that same mindset, keeping it basic, and just to continue enjoying what they're doing.
John, can I get you to answer the question I asked Leon a little bit earlier around the rivalries? Is this the one you want more than any other?
Oh, they're all important. They're all important. I haven't seen one that's not important.
No, that's fair. As far as the rivalry...
Well, I think rivalry bragging rights. It's about playing well against good opposition in your hometown. I mean, there's a natural rivalry that's built up over playing each other a number of times over the years, and that's a good thing. It's evolved in a natural sense, and we've played some big games. There's been some monumental contests in these games, and I think that's what adds to that rivalry. That's what makes it genuine rather than manufactured. There's a belief there that two teams that have been competitive at various times over the years have had those big games, and we are at a stage where there's two new generations coming through both teams. There's there'll be 6 or 7 boys on each team that are going through their first derby, and then they've got the experience on both teams that have played in a number of them as well. And I think that, as in a mix, and both teams adds up to a really interesting contest. And that's what Leo and I have been able to see, those evolutions of the teams and the squads come through, and we're seeing another group coming through now with that sprinkling of experience on both teams that makes it exciting. It's going to be great to be able to go out there and see these blokes playing their first one, and just see what they experience, and just talk to them afterwards, and just what was it like. That sort of thrill of playing in big games in front of a good crowd never wanes, and particularly when you've got a local team up here, that's what makes it exciting.
John, you've got 9-day break for this game. I think we're all expecting Buddy to play this week. It's a couple of 7-day breaks after that. Is it? I know you're going to tell me you're taking it 1 week at a time, but is it possible that he can play 4 5 weeks?
If I said to you any other thing, then we'll see what happens on Sunday and Monday, I'd be lying, because it's very hard to predict. It's very hard to predict, other than the fact that we had to get him into this rhythm at the start of the season, and he's been able to train, and he'll train again this week after, he's better than what he played the first game, so that's a good sign. We're heading the right way. I can't give you any guarantees, but we're heading the right way. So hopefully he keeps going the right way.